It's going live now.
It's going live. Ah, yeah. No, I need to see that. Maybe we can get a. Ah, yeah. Yeah. So, hi. Good evening. Good morning. This is the first time Dalit Camera is trying to have an interview, a visual interview. In the past, we did do interviews on the ground, like we don't come on the face, it is based on the atrocities and other things. But this is the first time I think we are doing this, and this was not a plan. It's just that Suraj said that why don't we do this? So I think Suraj pushed us to do this, and with so much of that Suraj, I think you should know that most of our Dalits are averse to the camera, and they can't speak on camera. They'll be the biggest intellectuals, and they will say, no, 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 camera, I can't speak. And though people say that Dalit camera, we take a lot of videos, we do. I do have that feeling of not coming in front of camera. So this entire day was I was with anxiety. How am I going to see the camera? So thank you for pushing us forward. Saying that, Suraj, it's really great to have you with us, and it's great because the work what you do and the way you represent the caste issues abroad and other places. So I think this is the first time the young generation people, like there are Dalit women, Dalit feminists, and young Dalit women and Dalit men, all are there voicing it out, their anger. Let that be anger of the society. Let that be the anger in the community. So I think that anger, this is the age of that anger to reflect. And I think having you here is really great for us. And so the pattern would be like a discussion, and I would I also hope that the audience do not need any introduction for Suraj. Maybe they might need introduction for me. I'm just a person in Dalit camera. Raees Muhammad. And so, Suraj, the discussion would be like, I will, you have 5 minutes introductory remarks, and after that, we will go with the questions and discussions later to that. Thank you. Here, Suraj.
No, allow me to thank to my dear brother, Dr. Raees Muhammad, for the work he's doing through Dalit Camera. I still recall about, I think it's 6 or 7 years ago, in your small little camera, you would do the videos, especially in HCU. And Lalit had once told me, "Hey, you should pay attention to the work Raees is doing. Planning to start the recording and all." And since then, it has been an exciting journey to watch you as an admirer and as a follower of the great work you are doing, especially on your own personal as well as the professional front of Dalit Camera. And the quality of videos, the first thing was to document, because our stories were never documented. Our stories were never important enough to be preserved. But I think with Dr. Muhammad, what has happened is to not only present them to the audience, but it has also created its own inventory of archives. It's a phenomenal work, Dr. Raees, that you have done. I would also like to congratulate many volunteers as well as the many patrons who have helped support this initiative. In addition to that, I would also say the amazing work you are also doing by mobilizing people through the social media reach of Dalit Camera, but also the footprint you have created as an independent space. And you have just given me a very good news about you guys going bigger. And I just wish that it's almost like we feel like this is a house we all built. And I think that's the feeling you guys have managed to create, where everybody feels oneness. And I would just also thank our other manager of this today's convening, Shikha, who is, I guess, I'm told, in Malaysia. Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here.
Well, actually, it's so nice. You have met me in HCU. That is very interesting because Lalit was one person. I think that was the first person to introduce me to larger crowd, and he was interesting me actually. So in the past, there were many people insisted us to go as a mute, and it's so interesting that though I'm not touched with Lalit, and you saw me then, so it's nice. It's great to hear about that, brother.
Indeed,
So,
indeed.
now going to this, your work and your voice has been there across internet. You have become a voice and a powerful voice. And you have also from Harvard, and I think that it's a great achievement on your part, but I think the great failure of the society because you're the only one went there. So I think the society failed us, and I'm really say would be ashamed to say you're the only first person. We should be ashamed because still, at least Harvard, there are people like you sitting there. At least one person went. In India, there are institutions like Indian Institute of Advanced Study and Indian stuff. So many institutions are there, advanced study and final institutions where Dalits are not even allowed. Even not a single. I think in the Indian Institute of Advanced Study in Shimla, where I did my postdoctoral, my fellow, not a single Dalit woman have been there. But I've seen that many Dalit men are there as board members. But so that is so sad, and we did raise it. So the achievement of yours is really great, but the society has failed all of us. Is the fact on our it is on our face. So let's go to the discussion, brother. This discussion, why I'm taking you is it's very serious discussion for me per se. The reason is the atrocities continue. I'm fed up. We are all fed up. I don't watch show. I don't watch news channels. And I'm fed up. I don't know when we get all these raids and atrocities on Muslims and Dalits and lynching. It's so difficult not even able to digest what happens in Dantewada and other places. So I thought that there is some serious problem. So we have to engage from the beginning, from our generation. So it starts from the scratch. So from there, if I start, I would ask you to say the word Dalit is universal, but it means different things to different people. There is a big conflict of the word itself. Somebody would say that I'm not a Dalit, don't call me Dalit. So there are different meanings to Dalit. So who are Dalits in your understanding? And is it a birth category?
Thank you. I would just like to add one clarification. I think along with me right now, I think there is another one Dalit who is at Harvard, if I'm not mistaken. Uh, Kanishka Ilipula, who's doing his PhD from Department of Anthropology from Telangana, writing an excellent thesis. We also had, she just passed out, her name was Avishka Avi, who's also from, I guess, Uttar Pradesh. She just passed out with a master's degree in education. And of course, last year we had a celebrated a legal scholar, Anurag, who was also at the law school. So there have been a lot of, but again, that doesn't represent anything, which is basically one or two sprinkles. And I echo your sentiment about how the the issues or the education related initiatives have been not at the front, especially foreign education. And it's as much as the state, the Brahminical society, as well as it is the community that has to share the responsibility of this. Coming back to your question on the Dalit, I think um, Dalit is a established phenomenon. Dalit can be a noun and it can be an adjective too. We just have to understand where do we belong in the scheme of larger things. Uh, uh, when you say controversy, I would rather hear more from you as to what you think are the controversies. One quick reply to your question about what Dalit means. Is there a one specific word or is there one specific meaning? I think Dalit is a condition. It's the condition of majority who are persecuted for the birth that they took in specific caste. It's directed against the untouchables of a society, untouchables by caste and untouchables by oppression. And I think that experience of being on the margins and being on the peripheries of each provocations that have been provided to us as a society. We need to now dig deep into it and try to find out our reasons of coexistence. Dalit offers us an opportunity to aim high. It emboldens us, it empowers us, and it looks into the eyes of the oppressor, not to be shied, but in a rage of furiousness, where we would like to destroy the system of any kind of oppression that emanates, be it caste, be it class, be it gender, be it sexuality, be it any forms of xenophobic or religious related tensions that the society has created. And Dalit is an aspiration for everyone to be human. And to be a Dalit is to humanize a society. And to practice Dalit is to be the love warrior that we all have been nurtured to since we took the birth in our own households.
So, if Dalit is, according to you, the Dalit word is can be two ways. One is adjective, another one is noun. So, if I may ask, across that is your understanding, but the majority of the Dalits understand and they write is a birth category.
I think that also is a complication that we currently have in society, because there is a very little understanding of this issue. And I think uh, the experience of untouchables is a very unique to any human experience we have had, because the untouchability that was imposed on people was not for specific time or specific reasons. For example, there is an untouchability imposed on women folks in many instances, especially in India, where when she's on her menstrual cycle, she's an untouchable for that specific duration, and then she is later accepted into the households. But the bane of untouchability imposed upon an entire community has a specific experience to do with that. And that's why when we look at Dalits, it is to identify the crux of oppression that emanates. And I think we need to prioritize how we look at the most vulnerable, the most marginalized people who are dying by the very accident of their birth, to paraphrase Rohit Vemula. And I think this is why we need to pay attention when we talk about Dalits. We are not only talking about the former untouchables or current untouchables, if you will, but it is to take their lead. It is to understand through their experiences how to attack the oppression, for us to then humanize our own fickle, insecure tendencies.
Okay, then passing on to the next one. In India, one is reminded of one's caste everywhere you go, but there are multiple ways it is exposed. However, is this the same in abroad? For an example, I was in South Africa. So I actually, this is my personal experience also. I should tell the audience. So I wanted to, when I was in India, I happened to do this research on scavenging. And scavenging, I started doing this research for the longest time for 10 years. And so entire body is shaped by the caste society. So I was always reminded about my caste. Then I believed that taking up the conversion, then I thought Islam is the only way for me to emancipate caste. I believed and I realized, and it was my research. So, and you have read my paper also, how I pitched that. So when I went to South Africa, I really felt my body as an independent body. I could feel my body. Nobody looked at me. So yeah, so according to Islam, the azan they're calling, so I shouldn't speak. So you can answer that. How's your experience in abroad?
Oh, we can wait for the azan to finish if that's a,
That's
requirement.
that's lovely. Yeah. Yeah.
We had a spiritual moment there, isn't? Um,
Yeah. So when I was in South Africa, I never felt, I really felt a new experience of my body. I find that I would tell our Dalit brothers and sisters that South Africa should be a holy place, African countries, to just go and step into that land and see how we experience our own body. Nobody sees you. You go to a mall, you don't experience of, oh, he sees you. No, no attention. So I felt very self-confident. I had this confidence. So I was wondering to ask you, as Dalit going to abroad, how was your experience? And is it different in abroad as I had experienced in Africa, South Africa? So how do you explain that, brother, than being in India?
I think you were at a very, very good place, in South Africa, for example, because um, uh, the Indians there are part of an indenture labor who left India about 150 years ago or 40 years ago, and the continuous colonial migration took place. So I think through that experience that you and South Africa, I mean, I myself spent close to 4 years in South Africa, which was a phenomenal experience. But that need not be the reality of other societies, especially in other countries. In if you go, I was in UK, in Switzerland, or in North America, in Canada, there have been a lot of caste-based identifications that have been so existing in our societies alongside whatever we do. And I think that very experience uh, of looking at other experiences, especially when it comes to race or their own indigenous societies, um, there has been a tendency of people who have migrated, traveled from here. It's very much appealing to the Sridhar Ketkar's definition or hypothesis of wherever Hindus will go, caste will follow them. I think this is what has happened, where they very conveniently took caste with them, and it has they have projected that on other people for them to forcibly accept it. And I think um, that has to be then conditioned through how caste operates in a racialized society, where caste has also its independent existence. It operates as a culture, it operates as a religion, it operates as a private practice. It doesn't get outlawed, because in a racialized society you can distinguish white and black, but how do you synthesize caste experience? And I think that's where we need to then bring out the nuances of our caste. And many scholars have done a work. I will mention Bal Murli Natarajan, who had written about caste and culture, which is very much departing from the ethnicization of caste, which is basically the Hindu community, or even the Muslims and the other religion, Sikh and all. When they follow caste, they don't identify, or there is no they don't necessarily adhere to the caste-based problems within them, because also the Western society, for example, offers them that space to be casteist, because there is no specific framework for them to be.
Okay, brother. Now, but in South Africa, I found something very interesting. All the South Africans were black South Africans. They're very particular about Indians. They do not like Indians, and Indians also disassociate from all the Asian countries. They said India is a separate, Indians are separate identity there. They don't, even Pakistanis, even Muslims are called Indians there. So Pakistan separate, Pakistan all are called Asians, but Indians are very unique. The reason they were giving me is they isolate themselves and live in isolation of one ghetto community in abroad. That is one. The other one I found swastik in Cape Town. Yeah, in Cape Town I found swastik return Om, this some kind of a Hindu religious symbols return for, drawn drawn on the public platform. So how are these people approach the religion or their identity there? One. The second thing is make me take me through London, UK, US, all are big nations, big space. Is it necessary for us, or is it a mandatory, or is it something we are compelled to meet Indians in our life? Can't we just escape from them and have our own life? Or is why caste is so crucial? I have known that there are a lot of Dalits have been talking about caste being a serious issue in London, in UK and US. They are trying to bring trying to bring that and add into the racial problem. So take us through how important it is and what is their daily life. Where do you meet Indians? Can't you escape them?
No, very important point. To quickly on the South African experience, the Indian community, has always been complicated. See, 1947, pre-1947, it was all India. It didn't mean anything. So when the 1947 division happened, people were carrying both the photographs in India, Jinnah as well as Gandhi, to represent a kind of, but also, there were, of course, the Muslim divide. And within Indian also there is a divide because there are Gujarati Muslims and then, or Gujarati Hindus, and there are South, especially Tamilians. So there is always a divide between the Gujarati or the Hindi and the Tamil. In the Western societies, you can practice caste discrimination as a part of your culture, as a part of your identity, as something that you have to embrace because that's something belongs to your history. And because of that, we had all the California textbook issue and various other issues. In the UK, for example, mostly led by our Punjabi Ravidasiya sisters and brothers there, who have actually taken upon themselves to challenge caste. And there have been a lot of testimonies, a lot of media reportage, and the equality bill that was proposed. The Hindu community protested it, and because this David Cameron betrayed the Dalits because he was fighting for his second term, and during that time the Hindus, because of their lobby, even though they are in less numbers, that's why the Hindu bubble of majority needs to be fought out. It's so surprising happened in Southall in London. I was interviewing the Valmik temple president. They have a Valmik society, and he narrated an incident to me where he said they came to him, the Hindu guys, during the bill issue. It's almost about 12 years ago, or 11, and they took a sign on them saying that we are Hindus, and they were acknowledging, yes, we are Hindus, because they had the Ramayana and Valmiki in their temple space. Little did he know that the sign that they took was to endorse that they support Hindu temples lobby, and he was very furious. He said, "This is how they used us to kind of create a fake narrative by using the Hindu Valmiki group who was there." And then they refused. They went to media and they said, no, we don't support this. We actually support the Dalit cause. We are victims of caste discrimination. And it was a very powerful moment within that. Similarly, in the US, and also right now, they're working out in some European countries as to how this has manifested, because it is not about a community. It's not about a country problem. It's a community problem. And because in here communities get their rights because you're a minority, you're either a refugee or you're belonging to a persecuted, whatever religion, that space grants you an autonomy, whatever limited that is. And within that autonomy, you can exercise caste-based discrimination and distinctions, and also celebrate it as part of your culture. And the society here is least bothered because you're a minority. They need your vote and they need to work out, and you're contributing incredibly. And because of these people who articulated early on, and that's where the problem, that's why we always need to articulate first. These people who started articulating early on took the mantle, and then they became the spokesperson of this cause. And that's why many other issues were put on peripheries. And only now the new generation kind of, is fighting back. But it's not only new generation, it's been happening, especially in UK and US. UK way before 1960s. Onwards, they have been actively seeking solidarity. In the US, it's late 1970s or mid 1970s that they start to do this.
Well, To put it in a simple terms, to ask you in a very simple question, but for me it's a very serious question. How do you explain caste? In your understanding, there are different writings, different narration of caste. So, how do you see caste?
Caste is a very complex institution which has been maintained over the years by legislating the actions of the people for the wrongs or for the goods, whatever they have done. Caste has become an excuse for the people of a specific community to retain an order of a ritual superiority upon a huge mass of people who have been disenfranchised and dislocated from their own spatial and economic conditions. Caste needs to be framed in relation to other forms of existing discriminations. Caste was just not a simple arrangement of society, but it was a forcible division of the hierarchies of the distributive, as Ambedkar said, laborers. But caste is also has to be uplifted through the definitions and through the meanings of how one suffers and how one benefits. Caste is not only about the untouchability only, caste is also about the privileges and the immense account of benefits one draws by the very virtue of declaring one caste. So caste gives one an unmeritorious and unhardworking, what Kanche Ilaya calls is non-productive caste, a certain authority even without working for it. It's a given ascription for the people where you don't need to labor to prove your credence. You just need to be born on some mythical ideas. And therefore, caste is a pure myth created by Brahmins to validate their control. And that Brahminical segment then gets sucked, gets benefited by other caste people who continue to maintain a certain form of system that is there to take away your own dignity, while at the same time you don't grant the same respect to the women folks who belong within the same categories as the other lower caste people.
Okay, so you have answered me a question which I was not even aware of. In the sense, I would never expected that answer. So, okay, because I would ask you the different way. For you, is caste and hierarchy of people, right?
Mhm.
That is Brahmin at top. Do you agree to that?
Yeah, yeah.
So, okay, if a caste is a hierarchy, but tell me whether we are reading caste from a bookish point of view or from a practical point of view. From a bookish point of view, would be Brahmin at the top, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, Shudras, and the Dalits would be the two. How do you narrate to the caste, to the practical world, what is happening? Give me an example of caste system which you adhere to, which is there on the ground.
I mean, just look at any organ of the state or any society or
We'll talk
any.
about one village, some particular example. Basically, why I'm asking you is, I am feeling that the caste, the way we discuss caste, is a bookish form of caste. It is not the practical world of caste. This has been, some people did argue about that. So I want you to engage with me, take the audience to your explanation of caste to the ground. What is there? That the caste which we speak is not the caste, which is the caste which we see in real life. Because Manusmriti says that hierarchically, and Vedas, and we talked about Brahmin at the top, and the Vaishyas, Kshatriyas, Shudras, and other people are there. It's a system. And in this system, we have been telling people that Brahmins at the top, Kshatriyas, but that is not the case on the ground. How many Dalits getting attacked every day? Where are the Brahmins in the village?
And I think that's why we need to make a distinction. One is the caste of dominance, and the one is the caste of superiority. Because the power plays a central role in describing. And when you talk about bookish knowledge, and that's what have been done by Brahmin and Baniya scholars and even white scholars to decipher this enigma of caste into a very practical form of institution through a very, for example, looking at ritualistic ways of or most likely it was a bookish context. It was not looked through the experience of caste. To write or describe caste is through looking to the experience.
Yeah, sorry. I would ask you this way. In the caste system, how does the power operate? Does the power operate like the one way the other, like the victim, like Dalits say? For example, when we say Dalits, when we argue, we say the caste is very, you upper caste, you Brahmins, you did this, you did this. There's an argument that is there. I do not disagree to that fact. But let us, we are talking between you and us, we are different crowd, we are talking. The audience might be different, but we both are talking from the background of we Dalits actually. So I would ask, how does this caste operate? What is this power? Is it a double-edged or it is single-edged, that Dalit versus the non-Dalit? Because I would like to differ from there. Before that, I just want you to take me through whether when you say about Dalit, caste matters. When you say caste matters in the society because caste is there everywhere from your narration itself, the lecture which you gave. It is there. It is everywhere. But I want to know whether the caste is also there among Dalits, whether the power also operates among Dalits. Whatsoever we speak about the caste atrocities happening on the non-Dalit, by the non-Dalit Vespa or Dalit, doesn't this power operates the other way around? So I want you to take us through how you see this as a category of Dalit, as a category of scheduled caste, as a category of untouchable. Do you feel that you are the only victim and not replicating the caste structure in your own community?
No, certainly not. I mean, that can be put in a different way because we don't have to pit the victimhood of one over another. We have to understand how the power asymmetries function in this conduit of caste. The way Dalit receive oppression from a broader society has been beaten to death. The very idea of not able to breathe, the suffocation of a village society. I will just, when to go to your earlier point where you said describe caste in villages, any village, for example. Now I don't know much about South Indian village, but I can certainly.
I'm sorry, I'm having tea, coffee.
No problem. So the if you go in any villages in for example, I will talk about specific region of Marathwada where I come from. The village is a very defined boundary. You enter a village and basically, and that's why I also urge the Dalits who are now on social media and who are now writing good English, they went to convent school and they read good literature and all, to also take into account the experiences of poor working class rural Dalits, because that's the majority of experience. Your and my experience of living in urban or semi-urban areas or slums is relevant, but also we need to pay critical attention to the rural areas. And that's why many Dalits who are articulate, unfortunately, describe from the vantage point of a middle class sense. And that's why it loses out on how the rural economy will work when it comes to caste and untouchability. It's a very, you go in any village, and most important, just don't go for visit, live there. Live there and see. I will tell you, one of my cousins, he lived in an urban area, and so he went for a marriage to a rural area, and he is this urban educated guy, has a degree, and he is basically what we call a well settled guy. When he went to village and there was a marriage procession, he felt thirsty, and the procession had to go from the upper caste, or what we call dominant caste locale, because the Dalit marriages could happen in specific places. They could only worship at the temple or take blessings, but not celebrate. So the structure is so precise. My cousin, when he went and they were asking for water, he felt like they didn't give him water. They poured water like this, and so for him that was a normal thing we could do. But when he saw that in village, he realized through the experiences of this clear segregation. Although in urban areas that happened, he was in some semi-urban area, it happened to him. But in rural area, that uplifted his understanding of how this functions. So within the description of caste, we need to see how resources, which is very material logic of caste, functions against not giving any material to Dalit for their self-fulfillment. That's why when we look through caste, we have to look through two major points. One is the material sense and another ritual sense. Material sense is one of the bigger impediments when it comes to ritual sense, it is actually given that so for example, what gives me confidence as quote unquote, if I'm, let's say, a Brahmin, to inflict harm upon other person, or if I'm a Banya or any of the dominant caste Shudra, why do I feel like I can inflict harm on other people? It is because the ritual confidence that I get through this enormous investment in making me feel how superior I am. And basically, the Hindu doctrines that are out there are there to convince the people of the upper caste as to how superior they are, how much deserving they are, how much righteous they are, how much of a godliness they have in them, and how much they are fighting against the evils. And this is the kind of assurity that these people get, and then they act based on that. There is no self-critical reflection, and I don't see the dominant caste Hindus or dominant caste Muslims, dominant caste Sikh, or any dominant caste who is enjoying the privileges of power will ever critically self-interrogate as to, is there a space for me to be beyond victim? Can I be also the perpetrator? That brings us to the question of Dalits. Can Dalits be perpetrators of the similar form of caste discrimination? Absolutely. Because the material aspect in the political economy feeds that narrative that you are also upper caste. You can also be superior. You can also grant an authority. And now when you have authority, what do? You exercise upon someone. If I have a power, I need to exercise, because there is no relevance to my power if I'm unable to exercise that power. And for that, I need to find the vulnerable, the most dejected body, because I know there won't be a rebellion in the return. If I want to insult somebody, and if I don't want to get an attack, I will attack or insult a baby or a vulnerable people or a person who will not be able to fight back. Why? Because it offers the gratification to my power that I've recently achieved, and I've realized, oh my God, I also have a power. But what do I do with that power? I negotiate my lower sense by bringing more lower bodies into my imagination of how my essence is there in relation to others. You are muted.
Yeah, yeah, thank you, Dalit Camera. So, yeah, I want to ask a simple question. Can Dalit be a casteist?
It's like asking, can blacks be a racist?
No, they can't be racist, at least in the racial theory, but that is one way. So, okay, then I'll ask you a question. Do you think race and caste, when you said it is asking like a black, asking whether he can be a racist, but let us keep that away, but I'll come to the caste. Can Dalit be casteist? Can Dalit do the same thing? It is not a copying. It is not like what Srinivas talked about, that Brahminization, Sanskritization. No, it is not. I won't agree to that. I would ask you whether Dalit can be casteist.
I don't think so, because for one to be casteist, you need the conditions to be casteist. You need the resources to exercise that casteism, and for that we need to understand how caste operates.
So you mean that for an oppressive caste, resources is very important?
It's a power dynamic. That's why I'm saying again and again.
For caste power, what are the requirements for caste power? For you, caste power is not about an ideology alone. It also comes with the material, right? But the beggar Brahmin is a Brahmin. He does commit atrocity. There is no class among the. So you mean there is a class which there is a class category within the caste which can make you an oppressive category. But many Dalits say no. Dalits say it is not. It doesn't mean that he's a lower or upper within the class. Class never mattered. Caste just mattered, even if he's a beggar. Even if you're a millionaire, Dalit millionaire, for example, do you think that he can exercise power of getting into the temple? Like our president of India, which there was a news, at least they were rejecting it, that he was not allowed. So you mean that there is a class attached to caste?
Yeah.
Baba Sahib never said that. Baba Sahib did not say that, right? Baba Sahib said caste is a way of life, way of mind. He was talking about the intellectual capabilities. He said to retaliate caste, we need so many things. But caste is not that. So how do you see that? So I would Uh, Give me an example. I also referred. In Gujarat, for example, there's a study was done. There was a study done, Gujarat Kennedy Foundation, which said that among Dalits, if Dalit versus the non-Dalit, there is a 97% discrimination. But within Dalits, there is 99% discrimination is there. And I can show violence is committed within the Dalits. Not in the north, I'm not aware, but in the north, when we went to the Valmikis, they used to say the way Samar see them, Maha see Valmikis. Even a simple question I would ask: why Dalits have Valmiki temple in Valmiki separate category, separate? Why? Isn't that the power? We are talking about the atrocities which are committed by the Dalits, by the non-Dalits. Do you think that in our community, just to be very open, we discuss. Do you think that our community, like in North India, Chamar and Valmiki, if they marry, will they agree? Will their family agree? Will the women in the family agree from the Chamar? If a Chamar girl marries a Valmiki boy, do you think that they will agree? Give me instances for that. I can show you violent instances in Maharashtra. So how do you see that? Isn't that the caste?
Right. I think this again goes to how we again understand caste and casteism. And if you look through the vantage point of the most oppressed, this appears casteism because there are intra-caste layers that function into this. And if you look through that context, again, I say to exercise.
What is that intra-layer? Intra-layer, could you put in simple terms that I can understand?
Right. So to begin with, I think we need to understand that within a dominant framework of caste, the focus on Dalits, for example, the Kennedy Foundation and No Surgeon that you reported and how it is done, the intra-relations, which is the subcaste among Dalits that exist, they do not only exist in Dalits. They exist also among Brahmins. They exist also among Baniyas. They exist among all the other castes. So within the 1200 odd Dalit untouchable castes, there are again sub-caste layers. And that's why we need to be fine in understanding how caste manifests. Caste doesn't manifest by one being Chamar, one being Valmiki, one being in the relation of untouchability. It manifests through the subcaste of what is within the Valmikis. It is the subcaste among what is within the Chamars. Because the ritual existence of these groups, and they have their own histories. Each subcaste had its own history. They have their own gods, they have their own ritual practices, they have their own priest.
That's there. They have everything they have separate. Then why do we call they are called subcaste? They are different castes. Isn't that we ourselves suppress their feeling to negate that different Dalits? For example, the Parayar history in Tamil Nadu, or a Chamar history, or a Mahar history. It stands on its own. Valmiki history stands on its own. How can they become a subcaste? Then which is the caste? When you read Dalit literature, you see that when a Chamar writes a Dalit literature, he writes Dalit. Whenever he talks about Kailaji, he will say Dalit. Whenever Valmiki says he's subcaste. So who is the caste and who is the subcaste? So that is one question. The other one is a simple question is: which Chamar girl marries a Valmiki boy? How does this community take? I can show you my wife, my partner is a Parayar. When I eloped with her, married with her, it was a big violence. No, there was no violence. They were after me. And no Dalit supported. They said it is a domestic issue. It's so pathetic that Dalit said it is a domestic issue. And then they go and say that those atrocities, intercaste marriages, we have to support. How many Parayars? You're not in South. I should not take references, but I can say in Tamil Nadu, Parayars harass Chakliyas. And Chakliyar boy, if he marries a Parayar in villages, he's raped. His sisters are raped. There are violent incidents. And no political party speaks about it. So isn't that in summer when I went to this Maharashtra, when I was covering about Valmiki, they said no. They were in hierarchy. Valmiki is saying that, see, for us, we are pure. We are better than Mahar. Mahar say that no, Valmikis are lower than us. They are the scavengers. Isn't the division there?
So I think so I think you misunderstood what I said, and that requires a clarification. It's not about the subcaste of Valmikis. I say within Valmikis there are subcastes, like there are subcastes within Chamars, within Mahars, within monks, within various, and each subcaste has a relation. So if you engage with Chamar versus Valmiki or within, I will tell you within the Mahars or within the monks or within Chamars, there are again subcastes who have the same tension. And what I'm saying is, you don't have to look that, or you cannot afford to look that as a tension of the caste relations in the same way that a dominant caste compresses the aspirations of Dalits in this case. Why do I say that? Is again, that's what I said. The ritual authority and superiority of hierarchy that exists.
Give me some examples.
Right. I think you put me on 3-4 questions. So what I will do, I will try to cover that in.
But with examples, okay? With examples.
Yeah. So
because you are a Harvard, I'm some local. So you have to get down to be my level and speak with the examples.
It's not about Harvard. Nobody gives a shit to Harvard or any other places. We are our mother's children and fathers, sons and daughters, and I think that's more important for us to have a recognition and an identity beyond any of this cosmetic recognitions that we have gained through whatever midlife. See, to reply on the question of, first you asked about the can Dalits be casteist, and what I'm saying, you can ask, can they be discriminatory? I can say yes, like any other group. Can they be casteist? They are on a non-power level when it comes to caste, but when we talk in subcaste sense, there is a scope for us to explore the question of subcasteness. That could apply. Can Brahmins be casteist among themselves? Can Baniyas be casteist among themselves? And that's why we cannot single out only Dalit group as practicing casteism while removing other parallel institutions which are much higher up, which are much resourceful, which are must having economy at their disposal to function. And it cannot be a debate of class versus caste. That is what the communists and the Brahmins have reduced this understanding to. Even when I said material, you immediately bounced back by saying Ambedkar did not say this. Who said Ambedkar did not say this? Ambedkar's thesis was entirely relying on material resources. When he's fighting against Khoti, when he's fighting for the rights of the workers, when he's fighting in the farm laborers, when he's fighting for the mine workers, his understanding of caste is coming from a materiality. And that's why Ambedkar proposed nationalization of land. He proposed nationalization of industries. He proposed because because for him the fraternity will not come with writing in the constitution. For him it has to be co-nurtured. And because of so many thousands of generations that you and my ancestors have been deprived of the basic humanity, we have only now come to terms with even demanding what belongs to us. But our demands are not radical enough. We are asking for reservations. We are asking for a limited acceptability into society. We are not asking for overall change. And that's why when I say when you have to exercise caste, you need a dominance. How do you gain a dominance? You gain a dominance by, of course, ascribing a negative or positive identity to you. That's what I said. Why does a Brahmin feel he or she is superior? Because they have been tutored for 55 generations as to how superior they are. They've been told day and night through the texts, through their worships, through their prayers, through their practices, through their industries of culture, through media and the academia, to assure how superior they are, what other will think. And the same is done to Dalits as to how inferior they are. So when we relate this to the experiences of caste and untouchability, we need to pay attention to how the dominant factors, I'm not saying forces, how the dominant factors make. And in that, we have to add patriarchy. In that, we need to add other organs that support caste as a system. And when we focus on this, then we will get a clear picture. For example, in South Africa, there is a debate. Can black be racist? Because in South Africa, the major so-called quote-unquote tribal groups or the ethnic groups that they have are I think 7 to 8 of them. and there is always tussle. Is it Zulu? Is it Setswana? Is it Xhosa? And they have always an issue, and that's what they've been pitting. The white people have been telling you're unfit to rule. We cannot give power to Zulu, and there is and that caste tension among South Africans is existing. But then there is a question which Steve Biko raised and Bikoist and Fanonian raised: can black be racist? And you know the answer. They put this in the context of history. If I want to be casteist against race, I need to have that background. I need to have that support. I need to have that assurance. And more importantly, I said, I need to have that race is not going to retaliate against me. If I have all of that in place, I can be casteist. But if I know these forces are not existing, then what am I being? Then I am being something who is ascribing to an imitation practice. And imitation is not exactly the original form. Therefore, when we give examples of Parayar and Arundhatiyar, which was a very sad incident to witness that happened in this, and it deserves condemnation. Similarly, happens in other contexts as well, where if I say myself as a Falana belonging to some caste of Dalits, I'm superior, as you very rightly said. You will go to their neighborhoods, and their meaning our neighborhoods, but which belong to different caste. They have we are superior, and there is always within that there is a subcaste superiority that feeds to it, because nobody wants race to be felt inferior. Nobody wants to be felt that they are lower than anyone else, and this is where they are tussling against each other. So if you marry within a certain experiences, which again your experiences are of a courage, and we salute you and your partner for standing strong and having together. Did the community fail you? If they failed you, that's a serious introspection that the community needs to do as to why could they not stand by Raees or his partner and their story. Similarly, there are other instances occurring. But that doesn't only happen with you, Raees. That happens with other scheduled caste, scheduled tribe couples intermarrying. It is not that they are against race that they are not participating. You will see the similar incidents. The other day we did a conference on the privilege of Brahmin, and there were people, and I'm sure you must be getting this. I get a lot of requests by youngsters saying they are marrying into different castes. They need some kind of support because, and personally, I can't do anything. And if I advise them, it will be against anything, because if something happens, who is going to take responsibility? But that's only personal level. On a community, social and society level, we need to invest more. We need to invest in the stories of Raees and his partner, but also we need to invest in stories of other intercaste couples beyond Dalits who need to now preserve, because as I've already established, we are a love sacrificing communities. Now we have to start reclaiming love. We cannot keep on sacrificing love for other people's bigotry.
Hi, sorry, it went on to different levels, and many people are messaging and asking me to shut up, and I'm interrupting you. So I think the time is also 1 hour past. So I just have a few questions to ask, and then we'll go ahead with the public. See, actually, we Dalits are always told that the education and the property are key to annihilation of caste. So you are educated. Do you feel that your education shed your caste? And there are Dalit millionaires. Still, they are called Dalit millionaires. For example, the Dalit Dicky. Dicky used to say, we are not job seekers, but we are job givers. But man, Dicky itself says a Dalit entrepreneur. So the Dalitness, irrespective of you are a president of India, you are whatsoever it is, I think the Dalit is there. So what is this myth? Is it a myth for us to say that education and the property will eradicate caste?
I think the question can be framed, are these the only possible avenues? Or there are others too? My thing is, there are others too. But does that mean we should give up on education and gathering or taking what belongs to us as resources? No. Did education shed my caste? It's a wrong question. Why? Because I did not go to education to shed my caste. I went to education to be empowered in my own intellectual spheres and get more understanding. Like similarly, perhaps you went to education. Had you not been educated, you would have done something else. I would have done something else. We didn't go to education simply because we were like planning to start hoping that after 4 years of education or whatever, 5 years, we will get away with caste. But the experiences have taught us that there are a lot of difficulties. There is nothing wrong in being a Dalit and a millionaire. What's wrong? Dalit, as I've already said, it should not be considered as a category of only oppression. It is also a category of celebration. It is a category of fraternity. It is a category of oneness. But more importantly, it is to remember our great ancestors. It is the love for our ancestors that we embrace it. And when I say I am millionaire of falana caste or falana Dalit or not, we want to say yes, we are part of this. But again, Dicky is another example that will take another conversation to have, and I've mentioned and I've written about it in my book on Dalit capitalism as to how much of complicated that idea is. About properties, when we say Dalit millionaires, we overstate that. And believe me, it is overstatement. I've done a research in this. Give me names of 50 Dalit millionaires. I'm only saying 50 Dalit millionaires. Why do I say that? There could be more. But even if we have those 50, what has that meant for their own life stories? Is very significant for us to understand where a majority of the Dalit community is in present times. The Dalit community right now relies on the pittance of the state. Reservation is nothing but a breadcrumb given by the government, and we rely and we protect it. Similarly, there are other policies that have made us permanent reliance, and the person who relies on someone is essentially a beggar. So the state has made us default beggars of Indian democracy. You are muted again.
Dalits keep arguing that the caste system is 4,000 years old and that it would take ages to eradicate caste. So isn't this just an excuse for us to blame only part of the system and not as a whole, as a caste itself? Such as holding on to the system while simultaneously blaming it. For an example, what I was trying to say is Chamar organization, Valmiki organization, having organization and sticking to it. When I said education and property, certainly it must. Everybody should get educated, everybody should have property. But when we say to eradicate caste, education is key, property is key, so that you eradicate caste. I'm saying no, education is important for community. It doesn't get eradicated. So my question here is, isn't that the argument of bringing 4,000 years of caste, 4,000 of years of experience, and eradicating caste is not difficult? Put it in other words, in your view, how can India can become a casteless society?
That will, it will be difficult and it will be unjust for me to just give a short answer to that. But however, I will try to sum couple thoughts on that. Casteless society, we have to imagine what it will mean to be a casteless society. First of all, we have to have a roadmap. If it's a casteless society, what will it look like? Will there be then no caste? Then if it's not caste, how will you organize the society? How will you arrange the society? Then there will be certain specifications. We will not identify anyone with anyone's birth for their caste. Everyone who is born in this will get similar education, similar healthcare, similar attention, similar housing, and similar kind of social decent life. If that is an ascription, that is what castelessness should look like. But also we should think what will be the potential problems, very much a Fanonian problem. What do we do after colonization ends? Does the native elite become the next colonizer? And that's why we need to pay attention to these specifications. So when you mention about the Ravidas temple and Valmiki temple, I don't know what problem do you have with that. I am perfectly fine with that. And again, because that's the independent cultures that we have had, we have to understand that's why it's called a scheduled caste. Is a scheduled caste who were in unison made untouchables of the society. They were in various geographies you go, the society needed untouchables to labor without compensation, to toil and produce and raise civilizations on their backs. Yet not complain about the deficiencies or the problems this system has created on them. Therefore, looking at the castelessness problem, we need to also understand, could it be a secular framework where every religion of every caste list will have a possibility? Some will say within Hindu, there is no possibility of reform and let's get rid of that. Some will argue, for example, Balmikis who are Hindus, they will say, no, 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 we have investment in Hinduism. Similarly, some of the Chamars, they who are invested in Hindu religion, they will say, I have, So the point is, how then we intervene this? Will this help by converting? Will this help by converting one's faith or converting society? And this is a paradox that we have been witnessing. Was a segment of castelessness a Buddhist India or a non-Hindu India, or for Dalits specifically? We don't have yet an empirical answer because it will take at least a couple generations to come to that. But given one generation's experience, we can think positively that Buddhism has in a way played an important role. But does that mean it has created castelessness? It has empowered Dalits. And Buddhism doesn't have caste, they don't practice caste, but has the remnants of ascribing caste-like validities existing in this? It is existing. Why? Because a certain form of caste principles, for example, what happened in Christianity. The Brahmins who converted to Christianity, they were very particular about upholding that institution. And they even went at lengths to defend it. What does that say? That says there is a larger conversation that needs to go alongside what we have in a casteless society. So I just want to leave with the point that let's think what castelessness means. And let's think that castelessness, can it be implemented in current status? And what are the requirements that will take for it to happen?
So right now there is no imagination or roadmap for Dalits for a casteless society.
I think I would be surprised if there is one, simply because we know what it looks like, but we have not experienced it. The experience of castelessness that was existing during Buddha's time, and even far during Ashoka, really brought it out as a pan-India segment. We don't know how that experience looks like. We don't talk about Ashoka's history. We don't talk about Buddhist history, where an actual castelessness existed for several years, several decades, and possibly even Ashoka's time, it kind of transcended for a century. But that experience was very much relying on respect to everybody. Ashoka's empire was a casteless empire, if you will, where animals were given equal dignity and rights, even fish, and so not only aquatic, but terrestrial animal kingdom alongside the flora was respected. That's our castelessness. Castelessness is not confined to the narcissist tendencies of humans only. It goes beyond that. It encapsulates all other beings that are part of us, who are not talking to us, who don't communicate with us, yet they balance us. They give us a certain recognition and dignity. And I think that's the roadmap we need to think about. We talk about the great kingdom of Ashoka and his reference to Buddha, but but governance of Ashoka and how it was maintained as a society, that has not been, because the counter revolution that the Pushyamitra Shunga did and followed, it took several centuries for them to even remove that. So we have now begun in the past century a phase, especially after Babasaheb Ambedkar's 1956 ceremony of conversion. We will now, and there has to be concentrated effort to imagine a casteless vision wherein we bring out those positive histories of empowerment, histories of struggle, but also histories of celebration, a history of ownership of yourself, agencies, as well as your view of the world. Once you see that, people, if they know this is how it looked like, they will act on that. Right now, we don't discuss that as much because there is not much conversation around that.
So you have been referring to Ashoka's period of castelessness, but you must have heard, at least I don't think in Dalit history, this reference is made of Meenakshipuram conversion, which took place in the 80s. And also in Kerala, there have been a lower caste Muslims conversion, which there's no record of. They don't know who are the people recorded because they became part of Muslims. So in Tamil Nadu, 400 families, even recently, earlier it was 80 80s, a big village embraced Islam. So now in Tamil Nadu, 400 families embrace Islam. And they say that they have eradicated caste as soon as they embrace Islam. And they say even the entire village treats them differently. They don't treat them as an untouchable. They see them as a Bai, as a Muslim. So even Periyar said long back that embracing Islam liberates you from your caste in 15 minutes. So why Dalits always say that caste exists among Muslims in the north? When there is a fact, one is about leaving caste. If Dalits want to leave caste, there are different cases of experiences Dalits had. One is conversion to Buddhism. As you also said, there are symptoms in Buddhism itself. They carry it there, and then there is Sikhism. There is a caste in that, and there is caste in Christianity. There's much spoken, but I don't find, at least there is any writing from the north. It has come, but in the south, where I come from, Meenachipuram conversion is the largest national movement that took place. That was not referred in Dalit literature. That is not even referred. So why is that? If Dalits want to why that embracing Islam, we have to go for that period of Ashoka, but not the period of Muslim conversion to Islam in the south.
Because Islam, the Indian Islam always had a tendency to differentiate itself from anything to do with the native experiences. And that's why Islam could become as independent religion with its variant practices, because they had a very certain practices that easily differentiated. And that's why once you became a Muslim, you didn't ascribe to any other, because your prayer, the regulation of Muslim life is so strict that you continue to live and experience the Muslim life every day. When Dalits converted to Islam, they didn't carry their Dalit identity. Or rather, they wanted to stay away from that because that's a stigma. Why would anyone want to do that? So they themselves didn't have enough investment in the struggle of lower caste or untouchables. There are very few instances where we will see the Dalit Muslims, even if at all they identified as Dalit Muslims. Compared to, of course, what Christians have, is they are coming very prominently. In the past, at least 4 decades, if you will, it's actually 3 now. More actively, the Dalit Christians become relevant. So when Dalits converted to Islam, the question is, how did they wanted to identify themselves? For example, in Meenakshipuram, did they identify themselves as Dalit Muslims or simply Muslims? If they identify themselves as Muslims, that means they did not wanted to do anything to do with the Dalit past, which is a valid argument on their behalf, and we want to get rid of it. So it's not about Dalits not taking them on board or the Dalit community as such, but also the unique practices that existing in Islam, which immediately differentiates from the other Hindus. So we had conversions that took place, and again, that's why Islam needs to be in India needs to be complicated, because there are many dominant caste, especially peasant caste Muslims, who converted to Islam, and then of course got into the Islamic, if you will, aristocracy, not necessarily the Shudras, but within that there was an aspiration that we will get into it. Now, your experience of caste not existing among Muslims in South India, I don't know, because I have not spoken to many Muslims. One reason I immediately identify was there was a huge connect with your own linguistic realities, your own present, where you spoke the same languages, you were assimilated. It's the only place you went for worship was different, but the other practices were very much harmonious, at least the way I saw in Kerala, for example. But again, that relevance was critiqued by another groups, where they were saying they identify more with the Arabic version, where we identify more with Indic version, and there has always been a back and forth on that. Notwithstanding that, the Muslim conversion history has to be part of Dalit history. It cannot be removed from the experiences of Dalit as a body. Religion is just a coating that we are adding on to that, but the Dalit suppressed body remains. And when the Dalit assertion comes, suddenly, all of a sudden, people who have built movements by not leaving their identities now are shut down by the same people who benefited out of their conversion to other religion. That happens among Buddhists, that happens among Christians, that happens among, I don't know about Muslims as of yet. But there is a huge investment to say, I belong to this Dalit caste, but for the rest of their life, it was a different experience. The Christians and all, compared to the Dalit Hindus, at least in South India, were relatively had access to education, which they could then articulate. And therefore, what we need to do is, when we create a syllogisms alongside Dalit issue, we need not lose the focus. And Dalit history has to encompass every other religion history, be it Islam, be it Christianity, or any other, because the Dalit in them, if it is preserved as a rebel category, rebelliousness, then it will be more fun. But I am not sure how will the Islamic community accept any other who claims him or herself as Dalit and again at the same time Muslim.
This is not a question, just a comment. For example, in Tamil Nadu, when after Meenakshi embracement, the part is that was a news. But after that, I don't think any Dalits went and did a research on that. Only recently, our leader, Sol Thirumavala, did a book on that. He did his PhD on conversion of.
Yeah, he told me that. Yeah.
And he did say that there is changes. There are a lot of changes, but even he did not publish that as a book. But let that be away. So the point is, I think what I found in this, this is my recent research also. I found that those who embrace Islam in Tamil Nadu and Kerala, we are not able to find them because they all went along with the community.
Exactly.
So that is quite very astonishingly very different. So that is one. The other one is when we speak about Pasmanda, because this is not a discussion about the Pasmanda Muslim or the Muslim question, but one part I just want to put the audience also clear understanding is when we talk about the caste in North India Muslims having caste. Whether the caste what we speak is the caste where, for example, when Hinduism, when we speak, its caste is exposed through violence, killing, atrocities, murders. Whether a Muslim got atrocity, killed another Muslim for his lower caste, whether that is caste. See, that is the caste. Other parts you can say that can be something different. So my understanding is Dalits when they see Christianity, Dalits when they read Sikhism, Dalits they are reading everything through the eyes of a Hindu. They are reading everything through a caste lens. Because in Islam, for example, there are different sects, like different sects are there in different castes instead. So I was finding it whether Dalit, I would ask you if you have known, since you have been also speaking more about caste Muslims in the north at least, are there any atrocities, killings, murders, butchers, discrimination, burial ground, masjid? Are there any discrimination of that sort which we find in other religions?
Oh, most definitely, most definitely. Especially when it comes to cremation and all. Yeah. It's a very, and even the intermarriage cannot take place. It's a big issue.
Sorry. Could you give some facts so I could cross check it?
Yeah. I will tell you two examples, especially on burial, and I will tell you about Khabristan, what we call here, and the marriage. A friend had to marry, and his last name was, I think, Ansari, and not I think his last name is Ansari, but the partner he was to find, he had to go and find his wife from a very specific location somewhere in the Hyderabad province, and he lived in Nanded, and we asked. I was very surprised as to, there are so many Muslims in this area and all. He didn't have the mention of caste in that, but the way he described was coming out as a caste, and that's where made me think, like, as to even in intermarriage, when you go to marry, there is a huge segment of identifying in where I come from. The Muslims just don't have last names like you have, Muhammad. They also have their village names. They also have their caste names that go with it to describe that they are of a certain origin. For example, the Pathans and they have a specific origin to where they belong, and that comes with a loaded history. So can a Pathan marry a non-Pathan? That's a big question to us. And that's why the marriage within, especially in the region I come from, usually takes place in a very cousin, or it's a very closed marriage. Many of my friends who got married, they got married within their cousins and close relatives. It's simply, that's the caste purity that they are trying to maintain. Now, we might call it in a different way, but in Indian caste context, that qualifies as such. In Arabic world or in any another cultural world, that might have a different justification. But if you look through caste, especially in this example, and burial ground is one of the contested topics. First of all, there is very little space for Muslims to bury because the government uh, encroaches, or they don't give them enough of a land, and there always been a difficulty for them to get it. But even in the burials, we had these instances where, of course, I read this also, but I will tell you about how the burial practices were taking place. The people who were working as undertakers, they belong to specific Muslim subcaste, and the person who come and officiated the ceremony, when the janaza, or I don't know, the thing is put inside the coffin is put inside the thing, there is someone else to perform. And that created a curiosity as to these guys who are digging the grave for the soil to for thing to happen. They were also Muslims, but they were put on peripheries. They were not up to the par. And when the ceremony came, I felt these were the experiences where I saw through the caste lens. I got more sensitive because few generations ago they might have been doing the same job but not be Muslims. You see, in the Hindu system as well, you are a specific Dalit caste who does that kind of job. Similarly, when they transcended into it, and then of course you have a very purity of Muslims who try to differentiate. The very reason that the Muslim has differentiated from the Dalits is the very effect that the caste operates on a very serious level. They never aligned with the Dalit cause, if you will, as the own cause. And I'm pointing out to specific Muslim caste movements who have alienated. So if there was a no caste, non-caste, why was there then a caste-based solidarity? How many Muslim mosques, and this is what I raised in California also, Professor Kanchelai, we were on a panel. How many Muslim mosques in India, tell me, preach from the mosque that caste is a bane, we need to abolish caste? How many Muslims in India used the mosque resources to mobilize, to fight the fight against? It's irony, and which is again a good thing and a bad thing at the same time. Bad in the sense of a different way. Good thing is that there is a universal brotherhood. A Muslim, when they pray, for example, operation happening in Rohingya or global Muslims. They will pray for Palestine. In the area I come from, they would worship, not worship, they would offer prayers, and my Muslim friends would teach me about what they call Philistine, and they would talk about atrocities. They would have a big exhibition. It was very admirable, but they would never extend that understanding to Dalit issues, because Dalits were again here otherized, and that is the casteism that existed in this mind. And I think that's how we need to unpack and untangle the caste experiences of Muslims.
So you were asking, among this, there were 2 points which also relate to the earlier explanation which you made. One explanation is about, you said Valmiki. Why can't they have a separate identity? So you were saying that. So here, the other part in the discussion, you were referring to Muslims discriminating within the Muslims discriminate as a sect, like Pathan and all. And you also said that in earlier discussion that caste, there is no, even Dalits do not have any vision right now about the casteless society, or vision man. So when Dalits themselves do not preach there should not be caste, how do you expect Muslims to preach there shouldn't be caste?
Sorry, I did not get the question. Can you repeat one more time, like what Dalits?
You said that earlier when I was asking, when Dalits, why can't they go casteless against the caste system itself, and like a Pariah identity, Valmiki identity, and various other identities, similar like Pathan and other identities. So you were saying that no, that is because let them have it. Like Valmiki, when I was saying that why should Valmiki be a separate, you said let them have it. What's wrong in it? And also the casteless society, you said there is no roadmap. What a society should be. When Dalits themselves are not ready, against the
Right.
caste society, how do you expect Muslims to preach in the mosque there shouldn't be caste?
I think the existence of Dalits is to annihilate caste. When Valmikis are having temples, when Chamars are having temples, or any other caste having temples, they are not there to preserve caste. Their aim is to remember their ancestors, but their ancestors' struggle was not to assimilate in the caste system, but to destroy it. Every caste history that you look at has rebelled against caste. Why were they subjugated in the first place? Why were they enslaved? Enslaved as the Indic civilizational success of what we call today's lower caste or untouchables. Why? Because they protested. Their recognition derived from destroying unequal, unethical practices. And that's why, of course, Ambedkar has a theory about it, about beef eating and Buddhism that comes with it. And in this, we see a rebelliousness, a character of one's own ancestors. Your ancestors ate certain kind of food. That palatial anti-Buddhist rhetoric gave this kind of counter-revolution that we had. Notwithstanding that, we mistake the Dalit subcastes as someone preserving caste. This is a very wrong misunderstanding, and I think we have to be clear. If you go and ask them, do you want to have caste? Nobody will adhere to that. Why? Their independent histories. Now, you are comparing that with Islam. Islam, in a broader framework, in the Indian caste context, has failed to abolish caste. As I've already mentioned, 800 years of whatever aristocratic Muslim rule was in India, and yet there was no even attempt to abolish casteism. If Islam was all about assimilating caste, dismantling caste, why were there not any radical efforts to abolish it? Why do we only see certain experiences of Buddhism only existing for Dalits as coming panacea? And this brings to us the question of why were the invaders of Central Asia and that region who came with Islam, why would they invest in retaining? This is when they co-opted with the Brahmins. The Brahmins were, if you look at the rulers, were the trusted advisors of every Islamic rule in India. That's why you see Birbal, Akbar is placed next to Birbal. And you will have various incidences where Brahmins, like they help Muslims, they help Portuguese, they help British, they help French. Every colonizer who came to India used the existing divisions, and that's why India could be ruled. People ask the question, they are so powerful. They were not powerful. India was already divided. How do you expect a tired army coming from Turk to come and enslave the region of that? They were already divisions where only Khatris were, and Khatris, again, we know the Rajputs were failed strategists. They couldn't even make head and tail of cavalries when it comes to fighting. Majority of these people who were taken as slaves, and slavery was traded not only during the times of pre-Buddhism, post-Buddhism, but also onwards. Slavery didn't cease, and that's why we see many North Africans were brought as slaves, and many other regions, people, especially almost like in a gladiator context. What happened with the Dalits? Dalits were never in the focus. Dalits, liberation of Dalits was never part of that. And unfortunately, that continues even today. That privileging of one issue over other continues to happen. And as a Dalit, I am personally invested in liberating people from the old age casteism. Now, if that means whatever religion will do it, fine with me. I don't give, personally, I don't give a damn about what religion one belongs to, as long as that religion or that faith provides a stimulus for anti-caste movements.
So if we shift our focus, I disagree with the part of talking about Islam, because there were a lot of references of Meenakshi embracing the facts of what is happening now. So if we, because I just want to tell the audience that we disagree with that part. So we can, if I ask the further question, but how do one see caste and race? So it is always said caste and race. So I just want you to explain, how does one see this?
I think it's a very complicated and I think we need to be also more cautious to just juxtapose caste and race. It's the experiences are different. The caste experiences in India is legitimized and it was legislated. Even pre-Manu era, Manu actually makes it a formalized document for governance. But even pre-Manu era, the distinctions were brought through. And caste, the way it is functioned today, the way it was functioning before, was different. But the right wing uses it for a wrong reason. They justify existence of caste-based hierarchies to say Brahmin woman, even though she was subjugated, she benefited because she could have a Dalit man working for her and she could exercise authority. That's where the question of goes, intra-caste, who can exercise authority. She had a power, even though she was a lower caste or lower species, if you will, within the Brahmin kind of framework. Race, on the other context, especially as it is understood now, it is very much understood the experiences of two. One is the slavery, the modern slavery of Africans in America and also in Latin America. And second is the colonization, the predominant experiences of that. And within that, we see the European experiences. Europeans manufactured the myth of race. The race as it was existing during even old days times. We have black people being the rulers and being trusted advisors and on the higher authorities in Europe as early as 13th and 14th centuries. And Ambedkar also talks about it in his thesis, where he says in the Greek times there were black rulers as well. He gives examples of them, and he says race was not yet very much defined as a color-coded melanin conception, and that's why the debate of historicity has to prioritize in how we do. Now, detractors, especially the Brahmin left, who is too fragile and too vulnerable, when Dalits claim a certain position, they immediately want to subside. No, caste is different, race is different, as if they know, and they are the experts of race and caste, as if they know what it means to be black or what it means to be Dalit. That's why the programmatic, the bookish knowledge, that's what we had to make a reference of field knowledge and book knowledge. But the third important they always miss out is experience knowledge. Experience cannot be objective. Experience cannot be written in a language that gets peer-reviewed pass. Experience is raw, and it needs to be said in the way it is most convenient for the person who is on the receiving end. And through that, race and caste have a different origins and different understanding, but they tie in their ways they are oppressed, in the way they fight back, and in the way they understand the world and how they contribute into making something. And I think that's where we need to focus on caste and race, but also on the bodies. When we talk caste, we need to pay attention to what Dalits are doing or what tribals are doing. And here it comes to the black and brown folks, but also in other areas, the Roma people in Europe and the rest of the world, the indigenous people, because they're racialized. Indigenous people, like, why the hell will you racialize these people? I mean, indigenous people are belonging to that thing. You came and now you racialize us. I mean, that has nothing to do with us. That's the same kind of framing that has happened. It's an imposed. Similarly, caste is imposed on the people who have nothing to do and no investment in maintaining it.
So now I'll just skip many questions. So one thing is, we hold this constitution as a heart for us, for Dalits, and you find if somebody asks me what Dalit movement have taken from Ambedkar, what is that in your opinion? I'll answer what I might think, but what do you think that Dalits have taken something from Ambedkar that every organization continues? What idea, whether it's idea on land or a Hindu code bill like a Women's Act or a annihilating caste, what is the thing that people take that to his heart apart from his picture?
Few things they take. One is, of course, the legacy of Constitution. The second is reservation. The third is his religion. And the fourth is his political struggle. Dalits have taken these four through their various, and through their various organizations and the way they look at it. And we can talk about it at length if you want now or eventually. But to just safely say, Ambedkar's political praxis remains very much alive, either through his conversion or through his political organizing. major times the people who are more loudmouth among Dalits are middle class urban Dalits, mostly, especially now these days. Social media has almost become a proxy, which I have a difficulty in accepting, uh, uh, but it has become a default, and so their issues then become what Ambedkar said, what Ambedkar did not say. And I think there has always been a different ideologies. What people did not take of Ambedkar is another important thing. We should ask what they did not take of Ambedkar. Ambedkar's struggle for land, Ambedkar's struggle for education, Ambedkar's struggle for creating separate electorates, Ambedkar's struggle for creating an independent cultural identity of Dalits. I think the later I would agree, now it is happening more and more. Not that it was not happening before, but now it is getting amplified. In every region, we have Dalit singers and Dalit culture. In Tamil Nadu, I'm sure there are, but in Maharashtra, and I can definitely tell in the Hindi-speaking belt, there is a lot of culture around Ambedkar and Ambedkar's idea. But it's not only Ambedkar as an icon, but also he's part of one of many, and that's where Kanchiram actually does a very good service to Ambedkar's legacy.
Well, one thing when we speak about Ambedkar and the Constitution, somewhere it takes me to the Dalit life matter. Dalit life matter, because I find there was a big group of Dalit women, young women, fiery activists in US, and Dalit life matter, and they have this equality lab, and they do. So, could you speak about Dalit movement in US for the audience in short?
Oh, there isn't any. It was before, but what happened is many NGOs entered this space. And so movements are created by people's sacrifices, and movements are created by people's devotion to this. It's not created by someone donor. What has happened right now is that has been replaced. Right now, there are 7 to 8 organizations who are Ambedkarites, but they are not present in the movements. For example, when the Black Lives is happening or other issues happening, they have been shut down, and it's been shut down by a strategy to silence the voice of the people. There were various reasons made, calling them patriarchal, calling them regionalist, calling them casteist. By doing that, the NGOs created their own space in this. And what has happened is eventually when someone calls you XYZ, someone accuses you XYZ, someone tells Dalit Camera is this and this, you as a self-respecting person, first generation, who is just trying to barely make it, will say, fine, I just have to take care of my family and my kids. I will not get into this trouble because I have so many other things. I will work in India. That's what effectively was done, and it was replaced by many foreign funded NGOs, which are now actually not only NGOs, but also there are many groups who are just cropping up out of nowhere. But there was a very solid movement in 1970, date backs. Vision was here, and various others, and the veterans are still alive. But very few less attention is given to them. They are again called out for whatever problems they had or not had. We don't know, but totally shut down. So we have a very searing shutting down culture where they just totally block the person and whatnot. And so that's happening in the US right now. And I think, but the good news is in the UK, it's happening very well. Our organizers are doing well in Europe. Canada, for example, is fabulous place. Vancouver Chetna Association and few other associations that are part of Ambedkar Society. And also right now, I don't know about Ambedkarite groups, but they are now, I think, kind of regenerating, kind of gathering together. But it has been a experience for them since the death of the founding member, Mr. Raju Kamble, who was leading this movement here.
There are just 3 questions we have, very short questions, and then we can just go for a question. So only 3 short questions. I've reduced all. So in Dalit movement, I have one serious problem is that women, the representation of women. For example, I come from the south. Even in Dalit Camera, I'm not saying that I'm speaking here just that I'm something. No, Dalit Camera also, I'm self-critiquing myself. So in Tirumalavan's party, Tirumalavan's party, it is one-man army show, first of all, Dalit movement, and then you don't have women at all. I'm asking women not in the context of representational politics. It is not about giving.
You should be cautious of that, though. The tokenized representation.
I'm not talking about the tokenized, but why I'm speaking about the need of a women in their committee is the way, for example, domestic violence. so much of domestic violence happens in Dalit families. After this lockdown, so many domestic violence because of the drunkard husband. And when we go to the police, when we go to take the organization, they just say that it is a domestic violence. We don't. It's a private life. I was so shocked to know that it is a private life. How? So there is no any plan from the Dalit organization. If you ask, you can correct me if I'm wrong. Why Dalit movement is not spending their energy in investing on empowering the families instead of leaving the family to their own sake of women, you get beaten up and being beaten up very badly. So why Dalit movement is that, and then why Dalit movement is always one man army?
I think, Ravi, I would like to push back on that. I disagree with you on whatever you said. First of all, you stereotype Dalit men as drunkard husbands. I think that needs to be refuted, because this is the kind of casteist thinking that is hurled upon Dalit men, first of all. Second is, when you say one man army, this is again, I mean, I spoke to Tiruma on this, and I went to and talked. I talked to the female leaders within the party, and they told me about their experiences as to, and in fact, some of them had come to America. We spent time together and all. But doesn't mean that should give us green signal to say Dalits are all well and they are not patriarchal. It's a patriarchal institution. We have to acknowledge that. We have to also acknowledge that the dominance of male character is taking place in this. And now let's go back to what gives rise to this. Our understanding of feminism has mostly derived, in Indian context especially, is either from the Savarna feminism, who took it actually from European white feminism, or the black feminism. The conditions of these feminisms were different in these societies. Now, I was of the same opinion as you, and I told in American organizing, I was critical as to why women are not there in leadership position. And I went and I did almost a purging to each organization. I talked to them. And this is what women told me. Some women told me, we are happy to not be in the front. Doesn't mean, of course, there are other women who don't want to be front. And again, it needs to be less intimidating space. But when you create this whole enigma around Dalit as a oppressive space for women, you really miss out. Read Roja Singh's book, which is about Tamil Nadu and how Dalit women empowerment takes place. We have to read the stories of how Dalit women sit at the leadership. It is no accident that the biggest party that we all have subscribed to and support to has a Dalit woman leader. And if you go and talk to her about Dalit women issues, just come back to me and tell me what she says. There is a very different level of caste politics that operates in this feminist spaces. Go to Mayawati and tell about Dalit women representation. I dare you or any Dalit feminist to go and talk to that, or any feminist for that matter. It's a very different space that they organize. Before you go to meet her, there is a strict warning that don't meddle around these issues, because she will then put you in a place. Why? Because your community experiences are not made through the books. You are not made through reading some secondary literature. It comes from how you realize your potential in the community. Now, if you say Dalit women have been permanently attacked by their husband, I will give you an example of Dalit women attacking their husbands. If that is how you want to measure the oppression of Dalit women, doesn't mean Dalit women are not oppressed. Dalit women are still oppressed, and we don't want to trivialize this issue of male versus female. But again, we need to be conscious of how these power dynamics play the role in rural areas. Now, Raees, if you go, do you think the rural area Dalit woman is sitting in the house and becoming a homemaker? She cannot afford to. She is in fact leading and we know the classic example of Sureka Bhotmange. And through our experiences, our grandmothers and our mothers have been at the forefront, because the life structure that we grew up in, especially in the poverty-ridden areas, there is a very specific understanding of how we deal with these issues. If you talk about the Dalit women violence, this is sitting at the center of, not because Dalit men are committing only. We should be very particular about singling out Dalit men, because what you do then is you misplace the entire gamut of how this operates. Dalit men doesn't operate on its stand alone. Dalit men operates in a very Brahminical structure, and he or she, or in this case he, is reacting through that structure. And we had these debates in America and elsewhere, where where our women leaders pushed back us when we were promoting the same idea that you were doing. They said that there is a relation that one needs to establish even before running around and creating. And again, I am supportive of the fact that we should not create a representational tokenization. I am particularly very opposed to that. What does that mean is that there has to be more congenial spaces. And that is why, if you want to look at Dalit women leadership, please go into the areas of microfinances, in areas of local organizing. Dalit women exist there. But this, having said that, we are almost rushing into popular arguments about how Dalit men is operating. Do we have a study on Dalit male experiences? Do we have a study of how Dalit boyhood is constructed? Do we even know how caste manifests into the Dalit male geographies? Many Dalit male who have grown up in poverty were born and brought up by their mothers. And that's how they shaped their vision. Because as you know, if you don't go to rural areas, if you go into semi-urban areas, if you of course, this depends on if you had both mother and father around. It formulated in that way. Now, if you had your personal experience with a Dalit male, which was very horrible, that is condemnable. Nobody is supporting that. But how far can you go and theorize it as a Dalit male experience? Do we even have a theory of Dalit feminism in contemporary context? We need to formulate that understanding. And I'm saying it need not be formulated immediately. But we need to be also very particular as to how we get into the celebration of I am also progressive. We have many brownie point feminist male amongst us who just want to win brownie point by saying good things when on the base they are not committed to the struggle. We have many males, especially among the Dalits, who talk about female empowerment and female representation and all that, and they get a claps. But on a ground level, are they committed to the empowerment? And that's why our struggle needs to go simultaneous. Our struggle needs to understand how this has come about. It is no accident. It is no accident that the attacks that have taken place on empowered women. Phulan Devi, of course, was not a Dalit, but one of the lower castes. How she reframes the dialogue. And within a broader context, if you apply a class and upper urban sensibility to that, then it becomes a very much of a Dalit male, Dalit woman issue, which doesn't mean that it doesn't operate in rural areas. But we need to be very particular about calling out it's a one-man army, it's a male party, it has to do with drunkard husbands. I think this is a stereotype. At least we will expect that we do not burden more, because we don't know yet how this cosmology works, how this affiliation works. And within the gender dynamics, women remains the most oppressed. Within a Dalit canon, Dalit woman is the most oppressed. Now, if you add to that a Dalit trans woman, that's on another level where we have even not acknowledged. But again, let me tell you, Dalit trans folks exist in their community, and there has been, at least to my experiences, has been acceptability to a limited account as compared to others. So when you are critiquing Dalit male, you can critique them as males. But if you critique them as Dalit males, then you need to justify what is that Dalit in them that is making them that Dalit male. Or is it that the male operating in a Brahminical society is reacting to certain things? We can't just drop around these terminologies without adequately supporting our thesis.
Okay, I think many Dalit women will be watching this, so I'll leave it to them to answer. But one thing I would say that is, I can relate to the intersection. There is a separate Facebook blog, Facebook and Twitter. I think there is intersection. I started reading that. I could relate to their anger now. So one thing, brother, about this Odisha violence. This will be the last one. Odisha violence. So there is one Dalit guy, UP violence. Dalit guy enters into the temple, and the upper caste shoots him. How do you say this? Give a comment on that.
There is a news coming, and again, we don't know if it's true. So some people are saying it was not because he entered a temple; they already had a feud, and I would like to would rather gratefully condemn that act. But the new reports that are coming they are saying that the gentleman, Mr. Jatov, was not attacked for his religion, but also there is counter reports. Already, although I have tweeted my response to that, that this is a perilous institution where why would you even go to that? But we have to understand Dalits are not invested in Hindu religion, they are invested in spirituality. And spirituality is everybody's necessity, if whoever needs it, be it from Muslim, Christian, or any other religion. Or some people just don't want to have spirituality within their own religion, they get spirituality within their own families, within their own, if you look at your mother's eyes and grandmother's smile, you find a spiritual experience there. So I think we need to understand that Dalit Hindus are not necessarily the fools or the people who are experiencing brutality. And these people have a different investment in this religion. We need to come out through that aspect. And we, in our lifestyle, for example, if it's a Hindu Dalit or any other Dalit, he or she or they are Dalit, that should concern us for the liberation of them. Now, many people who left the religion and they felt liberated, it's fine, good for you. That's the question of coming from the Muslims the Dalits who converted to Muslim, or Dalits who converted to Christianity and lost, and many Dalits who converted to Buddhism. They don't want to, there is a contradictory space. So I think we need to kind of embolden that understanding in this space. You are mute.
Yeah, brother, last one. What is this opinion? What is Ambedkar's opinion on Islam? Is he what? How do you read his position on Islam?
Oh no, Ambedkar was very much in, I mean, at least, in a political, I mean, on a spiritual context, he was very much, at one point he was like anything non-Hindu is fine. And then, of course, he investigated the Islam, and, he worked and closely, especially during the early 1930s, when his opinions were still formed. And he gave even at in one speech, if I'm not mistaken, that, if you want to convert to Islam, just go and convert. It's a good option, and again, we have to understand, Ambedkar was not formulating a necessary, he was reacting most of the times in these conditions. Many people that he sent to study Sikhism, for example, in Punjab, they became Sikh and they came back. They said, no, we enjoyed this religion. They were so hospitable. Similar happened with Islam, that the Dalits who converted to Islam. And there was a lot of efforts, especially by Nizam and others, to say that Ambedkar, you convey, to be part of this. So Ambedkar's existence, so people have pitted against that Ambedkar was anti-Muslim. He was anti, not Muslim, he was anti-political ideologies who were catering, and that's why Thoughts on Pakistan becomes a critical text. But also he was critical of, like, as I said, of the Islamic rulers who came but couldn't make much difference to the lives of Dalits. And that's basically I draw my criticism from. But there have been a concentrated attempt to pit that Ambedkar was anti-Muslim, and Arnold Tentumade has written an entire book and actually citing where Ambedkar brings out how Islam is not what it is that the Hindu right wants to present. It's a possible alternative. One, if he wants to get it. One doesn't want to get it, doesn't want to get it. And we of course know why he did not choose Islam. Of course, he was not happy with the orthodoxies that existed within the religion, especially when it came to certain practices and such ritual experiences, which he was not necessarily in line with. But also, Islam was still a foreign religion. It was not born in India. And he gives a justification. He said Christianity and Islam are out right now because they are not religion of this country. And he wanted to give Dalits what actually belonged to them, and that's the legacy of Buddhism. But again, Buddhism not as a religion, but as a practice. And I think that we need to understand as a cultural practice that existed, and of course Buddhism existed alongside other cultural practices, or what we call simultaneous religions or bhaktis, that work in this direction.
So, brother, I would stop my question. I just want to see whether somebody has some questions to ask.
We can just wait for a minute
So,
or so.
in the meantime, just to find out, my friend will be finding it out whether there are some questions to ask. Why, when the CAA in that debate, we find
Say what?
at least
Sorry.
NRC CAA.
Yeah,
What is
yeah.
their position in CAA? Because large number of Dalits, I was large. I'm not saying all Dalits. There were large number of Dalits were saying that we need even the Kashmir issue when it comes. They stand with
Yeah.
the constitution. So how does one see whether their position is where do they derive that position? This is just a question to ask till the audience could have some questions.
No,
Otherwise,
my
no.
my opinions are already out. I wrote a column on that. I gave speeches at Harvard, and I've been organizing around CNRC as to how it is actually anti-Dalit space. But see, that's what happens. That's what I'm always constantly reminding people: don't make it a Hindu-Muslim issue, make it a caste issue. So then you get the right levers in action. It is directed against Muslims because Muslims can be easily otherized. But if you make it a caste issue, then you can have a composite struggle of people who are oppressed by this. And that's why I'm trying to make this intervention on behalf of these people.
See, actually, we did this on. I don't know where there is some questions. I don't think anybody's answering either.
Which
I
is
don't know how
good
to.
that you answered all of the questions. It was a success.
No, but really sorry. So one thing, since there are no questions, I think we'll end up the session. One thing is we are starting Dalit Camera as a news channel, and you know that the importance of news. And as many Dalits who know, there are no news channels for us, and I'm really paying for that. And we have volunteers. So sad actually. All these years, all these years, I had volunteers. Only except my friend Sharif. He's a journalist. He's the only journalist who joined Dalit Camera. Not a single journalist, even including our community, has joined us. There are very few in our community, but let us keep even volunteers. No reporters. So I was so surprised that we were running Dalit Camera without even people from this background, and we were running successfully. So now we thought that no, it can't happen. We need people. So we are going to bang on the knock on all the journalists who are free and who are fired to come forward. And we are planning a model that we feel that in the past there are lots many people have tried. Ambedkar tried and Ayodhya have tried. All of them tried, and even now Dalits keep that Dalit Morasu journals they bring, magazines they bring. They try to be that generation. But our generation's contribution, I find not much. Like only very now Dalit women are coming, like you are coming. So I was finding it. We have to do something from our side on the virtual space. So I call. We need panthers not on the ground now. We need panthers on the web. So Dalit.
I don't know how many people will be happy with that. We
So
need both
I think.
on both places.
Yeah, so I would say that we want to inform you that, and we want your support for that,
Oh,
and I also want all of their other support for all the audience who are watching the support. And thanks for this last comment you can give, brother.
no, I just want to wish you, and this is our venture. It's not your venture, and I think this is where it matures. And I really like to congratulate Dr. Muhammad for facilitating this first conversation. He wanted to send me interview questions and I reply. And right now, as you all can see, I am taken by a few directions, but I appreciate you all taking time. And also the kind of critical conversations we had. I think it requires for us to kind of keep revisiting unless we talk about it. At the end of the day, our perspective is not changed. Our objective is still the same. uh, our perspective has changed, sorry, but objective has remained the same. And I think that should not then deter us from fighting the right fight. And I think for me, uh, you can be any caste person if you're invested in the liberation of your own self, because many Brahmins come to me and dominant caste, what can we do? I say liberate yourself, because you're also oppressed by your own family, by your own relatives. And I think we don't need much crowding of dominant caste coming into our spaces and preaching what to do. They have to do their own, they have to do their own good in their own spaces. And with the new venture that you are doing, the Dalit Camera, I really wish more journalists join. and I'm aware of some of the internal issues, and it is with every other organization where we have internal contradictions with what we do, how we perform. There are ideologies, the way we imagine. At the end of the day, we should all know we are not meaning harm to each other. We are trying to develop a composite, a compassionate space, and I think this should not come at the cost of calling one out and calling other out for petty things, but it should rather be the concept of, if my ideas are not acceptable to you, it should be like what we just did. We have a conversation, and I think conversation is central, and conversation is part of media. And I think this generation, Dr. Muhammad, with you, there are a few others, I really and I know them, they are working hard, will join this struggle, and this is a movement. My one question, let not this be NGOized. If it becomes NGOized, then it becomes and when I say NGOs, I also don't mean in a NGO perspective only, but also the way it operates to satisfy the donor, or satisfy that, it should be independent. And it's a difficult task, but you inaugurated it, at least I think 7 years ago, with your little camera recording, and now and so that's the only leap of bounds. And we are all closely observing, and we are all praying for the welfare of this initiative. And also, much love to you and your partner for keeping strong and creating an intra-caste relation, which is the beauty of being a Dalit person.
So thank you, brother, and thanks for joining us. An audience must have missed so much of questions that they might have think that I have not even asked questions which are related to Black Lives Matter and other things. But what I felt is, when I started this discussion, there were a lot of questions, but something I find, in my opinion, there was something very serious in the anti-caste movement, and then we have to introspect. And this introspection took us in different ways. And I think because this discussion is just starting, or the discussion is already there, we are just starting. We cannot sit in one. That's what I understood. Even for one question, we need 1 year, one day to answer, get an answer from you. So therefore, if audience have got disappointed, but that is how Dalit Camera works. We are not here to satisfy anyone, but we are here for the community. So community, and we stand together. And JB, brother, and thank you,
Brother,
and love.
one thing I'll tell you: don't be apologetic. Screw the
Yeah,
apology. Let's depart from, this is our authority, this is our agency. We do what we feel is good, and people have to. So let's not come from the position of receiver, but now we have to become the position of doer, and we are knowledge producers. Even in our citations, we have to be apologetic. So screw that,
yeah,
and powerful JBM to you.
JB, brother.
Bye bye.
Thank you so much. We'll end the session now. It was great having you, Dr. Yengde and Dr. Muhammad. Thank you.
Shika, thank you so much for being so patient behind that amazing screen, and I really appreciate you putting your energy and your attention. Thank you so much, Shika.
Thank you. I did pay rapt attention and I learned a lot. Thank you.
So last one thing, just like that. So what is this that we can take from Black Lives Matter to India? If you just ask, I couldn't stop asking you.
No, no,
Stop
no.
from asking.
Me and so I'm doing a segment with Professor Cornel West. Maybe we'll address that there. But also, let me tell you, Dalit struggles are different. So we need not always take what Westerners do, be it white or be it black. We can draw certainly inspiration, but we have our own struggles to do. And I think what we can, or if you ask what we can take, is looking at how diverse the struggle is. How many multiracial people have been fighting? And second is, they are uncompromisingly radical in their demands. They are not asking for little less, little. They are total abolition. And that's our project, total annihilation. And I think that's the kind of thing we need to be. So what we can take, one is try to utilize our resources and privileges to encounter the problem on its head on. And second is to create a space. Black people didn't create, they were doing their own organizing. White people joined. So I think we just need to see how that kind of came about. And that's not us to do. That's for the dominant caste in India to do. That's not our job at the moment.
Okay. Thanks a lot, Suraj. I really love the discussion. And
Me too.
see you soon. See you soon. and write columns for us also. Yeah.
Bye bye.
So I'm bye bye. Yeah.